Welcome to another episode of the Run from the Norm podcast, where our mission is to motivate with compassion, listen without judgment, and inspire with curiosity, one person at a time. I'm your host, Jayk Reynolds. Today we're catching up with a good friend of the pod, Dan Button. Last time we spoke, Dan was laser focused on preparing for a potential spot in the 2025 World Trail Running Championships. But as life would have it, his path took an unexpected twist, and a few weeks ago, he competed in the 2024 World Skyrunning Championships as a member of the Stars and Stripes Team USA. We'll dive into how that journey unfolded, and we'll also chat about Dan's involvement with a new running organization, the Tree City Track Club. I'd like to share their mission statement since I would bet it resonates with many of you as well. People who work hard to become better runners usually become better people. And when we bring those people together, we can build a better community. I love it. Dan's dedication to service, adventure, and community building, along with the support of his wife, Sumner, who is a competitive and highly successful athlete in her own right, truly sets him apart. So let's get into it. Please enjoy my conversation with the self-coached runner himself, Dan Button. It's time to run from the norm. Okay, we're recording. Dan Button, you are the first returning guest on the podcast, and I'm super stoked to have a chance to chat with you.
Happy to be here. I was actually a little curious. I said, I know I haven't heard any returning guests yet, but that doesn't mean you hadn't recorded one. So I was...
No, we have some in the works, but nothing yet, and I'm really excited about this. So when we last talked, you were going for the 50K World Championship, and I don't know where it was going to be, but am I saying that correctly?
So I think what I'd talked about last time was my big goal was for the 2025 Trail World Championship.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
So yeah, that was the big goal. But
and we're not there yet, but you just had a big adventure.
We're not there yet, but I still accomplished the goal of being at a World Championship. So a completely unexpected opportunity this year.
Yeah, so explain that. How did that come up, and what changed the goal from 2025 to 2024?
Yeah, so essentially just one of those kind of organic opportunities presented itself where I had seen... it's almost like a casting call, right, for team members to the World Skyrunning Championship.
Okay.
Which is a completely different discipline. I mean, it's still running, sort of, but we can get into that. But
sure.
So something that I, only tangentially knew about, but it wasn't really something I was super familiar with. And then I had heard or seen rather online people asking to kind of submit a resume to get on this team. We want to send a full U.S. team over. Historically, we haven't always done that. I think the last World Champs in 2022, we had like one person there.
Okay.
And this guy came back and he said, we got to get a full U.S. team. That's got to happen. So he's the one who kind of really spearheaded the whole effort to bring a team. And he was the one who was asking folks to, submit resumes and try to get on the team.
So do you have to have a certain amount of people on the team to qualify to go?
You don't need a certain amount of people to qualify, but you're going to need a certain amount of people to actually place to get points.
Okay.
So essentially what you're going to need is the max amount of people you can enter in each race. So in case of DNFs and injuries and other stuff, you can try and get the most points.
So it's almost like a cross-country race then, to where you're scoring team points?
It's a cross-country concept, but the opposite scoring. So the winner gets 100 points.
Okay.
And then second place gets 88 points, and it works down from there until it's, two points less each person. And so the top 40 runners are going to score some points.
Okay. So just to set the stage, explain the difference between the two disciplines then.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. So Skyrunning's governing body is, and I might say this wrong, the international organization is mountaineering and climbing. So it's like IAU, something that's a French governing body. Well, it's where it's based.
Okay.
But essentially what they govern is more mountain disciplines like climbing events that are actually
like
scrambling and climbing. And I think they have some association with wayfinding type of stuff like that.
Okay.
So a completely different group than the group that governs all running events, which would be World Athletics.
Okay.
So I think that's the biggest difference, is that it falls under a completely different governing body, a completely different set of rules. And then skyrunning itself, which falls under that, has some very specific, I'll say, rules for what makes a skyrunning event. So it is running. It is, has it in the name. It's very similar to trail running. You are usually on trails or, in the mountains. But to be considered a skyrunning event, you have to have certain minimum amounts of elevation gain per mile on average.
Oh.
And you have to be over a certain altitude on average as well.
Okay. And does it specify anything on how much trail you have to be on or how much scrambling there has to be? Because you're showing me your kit, which I want to get into, the design of it and sponsorships and all that you were kind of alluding to before we chatted. But on the back of it, you were showing me where you've got holes in that thing.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I think, honestly, the more crazy, the better is how they design these courses. So if you can go off trail scrambling for most of the race, that's like preferred, it seems like.
It's even better for them.
Yeah. A lot of them are over in Europe and they're just on true mountaineering routes of like, what's the direct point from here to there? Just go for it. I mean, these races, in our race, we didn't have to, but in a lot of them, you don helmets at certain points. And you're
interesting.
Literally clipping in and just running up cliffs, It's like,
so what took you to that then? From what you were looking at 2025, what led you to go after this goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I looked at the courses for this year before I submitted my resume, and there was a course that was about 50, 60K was what it was supposed to be.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, that distance is kind of my sweet spot. So that was the first thing, like, okay, I think I can do that and actually do well. Because I don't want to submit my resume if I don't think I can actually perform, right? It's
sure.
Like, so I was like, that was the first criteria. And then the other one was just, is this going to be a fun, exciting challenge? Like, can
something
I actually,
different.
Yeah, exactly. Can I do well? And is it something different? Is it just, is there some compelling reason to go? So it checked off both of those. So
nice. And now, does it change location year to year, or is it always in the same spot?
It's every 2 years, and it moves around. I think historically it's mostly been in Europe, but I mean, I'm not going to complain. I'd rather go to Europe than race in my backyard if I have to, right?
Absolutely.
It's a little more exciting. So
yeah.
So it was over in Spain, and I think it's been in multiple different European countries in the past.
So how do you qualify for something like this? You're talking about having to put together a resume, but is it just you put a resume together and they say, oh, this looks awesome, we're going to, invite you, or do you actually have to run a final like qualifying race? What does that look like?
It's just you send a resume in, and they're going to pick the resumes they think are going to give us the strongest team.
Interesting.
So in this case, the guy Joe Demore is his name, Joseph Demore, who kind of put the team together, and he had a couple other, respected, peers who really know, running and can look at the race results, and they kind of got together and just basically formed a committee to choose who they thought would be the strongest team. Really? I think he told me there was about 100 resumes in total for the 12 team spots that were on offer. So they picked their strongest team they thought they could with a lot of people to choose from.
So I guess you didn't have to find out if you qualified then. It was just you put in your resume and then, I guess you're still having to wait and hear back whether or not they're going to select you.
Yeah, and to be honest, I really didn't have high hopes, and I hadn't even factored it into the rest of my season because I thought, well, I don't have a lot of skyrunning specific experience. Like I just said, I felt confident, but I didn't know who else was sending their resume in, right? And I know I'm like, okay, there's all these folks that are living at high altitude in Colorado and stuff. It's like, who probably do these things and travel around. And I've done, I think, 2 or 3 events that would qualify as skyrunning events here in the States. So I was like, yeah, my resume isn't deep in that regard. So I really didn't pay it much mind once I submitted my resume. I thought, well, there's no harm in finding out if I can get on the team, but I'm not going to hold my breath or wait on pins and needles to see if I get in. So,
how long did you have to wait until you heard back?
I think I submitted my resume pretty early, so I want to say it was over a month for sure, maybe 2 months or so. I think it was a pretty good long time where I kind of had almost forgot about it for a while. So
what do you do for a training block for that? So something that's a little bit more aggressive than what you're normally doing. What would like a typical week look like in your training?
The same way I've been doing training for anything else the last couple of years, which is I really study the course pretty closely. I think with trail events, it's just so dependent on being specifically prepared. I also people go the other direction. Fitness is fitness. So I'll do that for the rest of my workouts. But for my big workout each week, like how a week is structured, it'll be, a couple easy days and then a speed session on Wednesday, which is usually on a track, which is, the opposite of steep mountains. But I think that's where you just want that general fitness, and it's going to come from training with other folks. And we can get into that later. But yeah, that's, kind of midweek workout. And then my long run / longer workout on a Saturday or Sunday that's really simulating the course whenever I can. So it's tough to do to get the exact type of terrain sometimes, but what I've found is simulating the vertical gain is kind of the thing that works for me. So I'll study that course. What I've been doing is doing a little bit of quick calculation on what's the total gain, what's the total mileage, and just dividing it by mile. And then if there's any significant climbs, do I structure, okay, this course is 10,000 feet of gain, but it's all in 3 big climbs. Okay, and now I'll build some long runs in, even from the beginning of the training block where they're easier effort, but I still want to get used to that, my legs and my body getting used to that one big climb and then a second big climb an hour later, or whatever it is. Some of them are, relentless climbs, so I just find a short, steep hill and just up and down. So,
interesting. Because I remember when we talked last, as we were talking about how you approach training, you were very specific in that and setting your goals. And I remember seeing something where I don't know if this was part of a training block, but you ran kind of an FKT from the Capitol downtown, the Bell, all the way up to Bogus.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if you came back down as well, if that was an out and back. Was that part of a training block, or was that just a fun run that you were putting together?
That was kind of the beginning of this training block, yeah.
Okay.
So that was when I was kind of still in the, not super specific to the course, but more of just replicating the vertical gain of the course.
Gotcha.
So it's like a 6,000 foot gain, and I did not come back down. I just went to the summit and then jogged back down to the parking lot. So
gotcha. How many miles are you usually putting in a week?
This year, I've averaged about 90 for the year so far. So that was prior to this training block, the spring races I did, and then a little taper week. And then this whole block, I think I ended up getting about exactly 90 for 15 or so weeks leading up to the race.
With how much vert in there?
I think I averaged close to 12,000 a week. So
wow. So yeah, you're getting a lot of miles and some good vert.
The most I've ever done by far. This whole year in general, I think I exceeded my highest vert year ever, which was last year. So I already had picked it up last year. I exceeded that a month and a half ago. So it's been a huge bump up in vert for sure.
How'd your body take the workload?
I think overall, well, I probably took 15% a reduction in like miles. I think in previous years, most of my training is 100, a little over 100. So bumping it down to like mid 80s to 90 a week has been kind of the way I've tried to play with the increase in vert. So
yeah. And then are you worrying about your diet? Are you eating specifically a certain way, or is it just whatever you stick in your face?
Whatever I can get in there.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be the person to go to for diet advice for sure. I scarfed down like half a Domino's before I came over here tonight. So.
Sounds like my kind of eating too.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the trip then. So you get accepted to this thing, and so you have 12 people you said are going to be on this team. How does it get put together? Do you have to pay for this out of your own pocket? You mentioned maybe some sponsors. Did they have, the running kit you were showing me? Do they already have that put together? What does all that look like to put this trip together to get you all over there?
So I think that was kind of one of the most fun parts, which I didn't fully know going in, but I knew enough to expect it, which was it was all kind of built by us on the team. It was complete freedom to do whatever we want. There's nothing coming in ahead of time, right? Which is, there's no funding, there's no kits, there's no, it's
full grassroots.
You get thrown into a WhatsApp group with 11 other people and a couple other support people too, and you just figure out what do we want to do, right? And a lot of us had similar experiences, and we've kind of done some fundraising, so we ended up having an experienced team in that regard.
Okay.
So it made it pretty simple. Joseph DeMore, who I mentioned earlier, had already started a GoFundMe type of website, page to try and build support before he'd even sent out the invites to be on the team to people. So we kind of had that going from the start, and it was just really, really grassroots. We had a few folks kick in about $1,000, but we ended up raising about $6,000, and the rest of it was just people chipping in $20, $50, and it added up and made a huge difference. So, and then the same thing with like the jerseys, the kits we got. One of the fellows on the team had a great connection with this trail running company that's actually based out of China that none of us had ever heard of.
And connections are good.
Connections are good. So he'd been working with them. They're trying to get into the North American market.
Interesting.
And they heard about it and said, not only will we send you team jerseys, but we're going to send you a full box of multiple pairs of our shoes, multiple full outfits, rain jackets, hats. We had super nice trail running vests that we actually ended up, a bunch of us wore in the race. And they were all just kind of, we're here to just try and get our name out, so please talk about us, but there's no obligation, right? Like, they knew we'd wear the jerseys in the race, but we didn't have to wear the rest of their kit if we didn't want. So it was just a bunch of gear. So it ended up being a pretty amazing partnership for everybody on the team.
It sounds like. What's the name of the company?
It's called Kailas Fuga. So it's Kailas Fuga. So it's two separate words, Kailas Fuga.
Interesting.
I think the brand is Kailas, and Fuga is kind of their like trail running. But if you do a little digging around on them, I didn't until I'd heard of them, and I went and Googled them. I said, a lot of their shoes look just like Salomon's. And I'm like, is this like a Salomon ripoff? Turns out it's not a Salomon ripoff. They're priced at the same as Salomon. So this is a very high-end company that's just only been in Asia, and we've never heard of them yet. So I got a couple pairs of their shoes that I've absolutely loved, like the BOA speed lace, systems, and just super, super high end stuff. So
it's just all the different world manufacturers that we don't hear about being in the States.
Right. And it was funny because we get over to the skyrunning worlds, and there's a ton of those brands I've never heard of. All the European teams are sponsored by whatever, and you're going, what is that?
But it's all such similar quality and
Yeah. So it's a big world out there.
So when you put this team together, do you have to apply to like the Skyrunning Federation to say, hey, this is our team resume.
Yeah.
Can we come? And then can there be multiple teams from a country, like 2 or 3 U.S. teams going, or how does that work?
There can only be one national team.
Okay.
And we were fortunate that one of the other guys helping with the race who wasn't part of the team, this guy Ryan, is kind of the U.S.-based skyrunning contact.
Okay.
So there's a Skyrunner World Series, which is a professional race series as well.
I'm familiar with it vaguely because I'm not sure if you know Cody Lind.
Yeah.
Mutual friend. So he obviously runs in that series quite a bit. So, peripheral I've seen a little bit, but I didn't really understand the difference between the trail running side and the sky running side. So as you're explaining that, it creates a little bit better distinction. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Cody's probably one of the best US-based, sky runner folks on the world scene. But yeah, certainly if he'd applied for the team, we would have found a spot for sure.
Brought him on.
Yeah, he had his own summer of races going on, so he's had a great year. But yeah, so this guy Ryan is kind of been the one who's worked with U.S. teams in the past.
Okay.
We do pretty consistently send over a junior team because there is a junior World Skyrunning event.
Oh, interesting.
And Ryan
junior is like 18 and younger.
18 and
okay.
under. Yeah. So we've consistently sent a team to that. So the connections are there. We just haven't sent the senior team over. So
okay.
Ryan was the one that kind of handled all that, made it way easier for us to get our names in, get us bit. I mean, we didn't have to do anything. We got there. He kind of took all
simplified the approval process. Now, how's the mix? Is it all male or is it male female? Do you have to have a certain amount of each?
Yeah, so you have to have. You can have 6 people total in each race, and there's 3 races. So I guess I probably should explain that a little bit more. But there's a vertical kilometer, which is not super familiar in the States, but it's very, very common in a lot of other
hearing
parts
about
of
it
the world.
more often.
Yeah, so it's a vertical kilometer is a full kilometer vertical meter gained. So it's about 3,200 feet or so, 3,280 feet gained in elevation over 5K or less in distance.
Oh,
so
okay.
Very steep, uphill only. And that's the first race. And then the second day was our Sky Ultra, which ended up being more than the 60K. They told us it ended up being closer to 70K, but that's all right.
Snuck in a little bit more bonus miles.
Yeah. And then the final day is a 37K, which is kind of the classic Sky distance. Usually Sky races are under a marathon because they're so technical and steep. They're not usually as far. They're not usually quite an ultra. So 20-something miles. So the 37K was the third event. So we were allowed to have teams of 4 per gender maximum, provided 2 were the other gender, or you could do a 3 and 3 split. So for our ultra race, we had 3 men and 3 women.
Okay.
And then for the vertical K and the 37K, we actually had the same team doing both, which is pretty common because the vertical K, while aerobically really hard, it's a Friday night and you run 3 miles uphill and that's it, right? So they did have to make their own way down, but they walked slowly and recovered back down.
Gotcha.
And then you have a day off, and then on Sunday you do the 37K. So we had a team of 4 men and 2 women that did those 2 races.
So if I'm understanding correctly, each of those 3 disciplines, you have to have 6 people in each race?
Well, you'd want to get maximum score. You need 4, you need 4 finishers to get in there.
Okay.
Basically, what they do is they take the highest 4 points total.
Okay.
So if you have 6 runners, it's better odds to get more points. So that's kind of the way they did it. So we learned afterwards that you only have to have 1 per gender of the smaller gender to score, which we didn't realize going in because we all figured, okay, if we have 4 men and 2 women and our women are really good, the top 2 women can beat a lot of the women. So we had this whole idea, and then we realized the Spanish were crushing us, which they probably would have anyway, to be fair. But they were crushing us because they had one lady who was amazing in each of the 3 races.
Okay.
And then they had 3 really good guys.
Gotcha.
So they had more guys to choose from. So all they needed was one good good woman to finish, right? So we were like, well, we thought you'd have to have at least 2 of a gender right now.
You had better balanced distribution and showing for the team.
Yeah.
So what happens after this race? Are you going to do another one of these, or was this kind of a one and done?
I mean, I think all of us had a pretty good experience on the team. Joseph was the world champion for the vertical K in 2022, and he was there by himself. And then he followed that up with, I think he finished 3rd or 4th in the 37K, did the same kind of thing last time. So he ended up finishing like 2nd overall or 3rd overall in the points. Because they total your 2 races. So this time he was 2nd and 4th, and he ended up finishing 2nd overall because of where other people finished. So I'm sure Joseph will be back, right? And how we're doing it right now, where we're kind of just using the resume. I don't think anybody would begrudge him for putting together his own team again. And he definitely deserves to be there, being the defending podium place, right? So and yeah, the rest of us had a good experience. I think we'd all be willing to go back in 2026. Will be the next one.
Nice. But for now, are you going to go back to the focus on 2025?
Yeah, and I think I'm armed with more experience that really pays off when trying to get on that world team, which happens to be about an hour north of where we raced in Spain next year anyway.
Oh, fantastic.
It's just north of the range we were in up in the Pyrenees.
Okay.
And they actually just dropped the courses for 2025 Worlds yesterday, and they all have more vert than our race did in the Sky World, which you'd think the Sky race traditionally is a lot steeper, a lot more climbing. And turns out the Trail World Champs next year are going to be
even more aggressive,
yeah.
But hopefully more actual trail.
Well, yeah, who knows?
So let's actually backtrack off of that. So tell me a little bit about the experience. Tell me about the trip over. What was the trip over like? What was it like when you got there? And, the scene, is everybody mingling with each other? Or are y'all kind of keeping to yourself? What was that like leading up to the race?
Yeah, so I mentioned the funding earlier. The main thing we used that for was basically to book a couple Airbnbs. We didn't find one that was big enough for the whole team, which is understandable because a lot of us brought spouses and friends, right? So we did end up breaking the team into 2 houses, but it still provided a lot of community and a lot of good, socializing between the two. All of us in the ultra race stayed in our own house, and the other folks stayed, but it was like 2 blocks away. So we hung out a lot and all that once we got over there. For me, it was super exciting. My first time ever going to Europe. So it was like a whole new experience.
Completely different. Absolutely.
Yeah, we were planning to go to Italy this year, and we'd written it off, had other things change, and then this came up, and we're like, well, I guess we are going to Europe. So.
Well, it sounds like you got to see a really beautiful section of it too.
Definitely. So yeah, we flew into Madrid, spent about a day there, had some fun exploring, running around and checking out cool stuff. My wife went over with me, and then we headed up, got a rental car and drove about 2 hours north to where the race was. So yeah, nice. It was incredible. The experience and all of that was super cool. And second year in a row, I've been on one of these teams. So the team part was pretty familiar from the NACAC race that I did last year up in Canada. So one of the guys actually on our team, on our ultra team, Jeff Stern, was on that team as well. So
okay.
We were like,
kind of a throwback.
2 for 2. Let's go for next year as well. So
nice.
Yeah, that was fun and just super cool folks on the team. A lot of different backgrounds and different vocations and different stuff. So it was kind of cool to kind of compare and contrast training and living situations. And I think 2, maybe 3 of the folks on the team don't live at high elevation in Colorado. So it was
okay.
We were the odd people out who were
lower landers.
Yeah. Only 3,000 feet. Oh man.
That's funny. So what, outside of the race, which I want to get to because I want to hear about your race experience, what was your favorite part of once you got there and kind of settled in and what you saw?
Yeah, I think just where we were was way off the beaten path for tourists. So, I mean, obviously Madrid is pretty touristy, but as soon as we started driving up, it was like you were telling people where, people over there in Spain where you're going, and they're like, why? Where?
You're doing this on purpose?
Yeah. And it was super nice area, but we got there and it was tons of empty houses, like, nice, well kept, in these cute little medieval towns. They're all like a horse ride apart probably, right? So we realized, though, that it was kind of like the touristy area for other people in Spain. So I think a lot of folks from Madrid and stuff head up there because it's a little further up, a little cooler. And it was like no one was there because it's starting to get cool and they had all just gone back to the cities.
I gotcha.
So it was a touristy area, but not like...
It wasn't overrun and you had space to...
Yeah, it was like the McCall for Boise, right?
Okay.
It was like...
Nice.
So it was cool, and it felt like we were very well, welcomed and appreciated. Just all these people from other countries showing up in these little, Spanish mountain towns that don't get a lot of that, and the folks were super gracious. And
that's cool, welcoming you with open arms.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we got to bust out our Spanish, which I would say is, middling to mediocre at best, but it felt a lot better after a week over.
Nice.
A couple places we went to eat where it was, the menu of the day, right? So they're rattling it all off. Do you have a menu? No. Oh, okay, well.
I'll eat whatever you bring me.
Yeah, I heard pollo in there somewhere. Give me the chicken,
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So what was it? Is you're getting ready for the race then, night before? I'm not sure what time it starts. Are you feeling good? You're feeling rested? Any issues?
Yeah. So one of the things that had been bugging me leading up to the races, I've been having some lower back, just kind of stiffness. I think I've chalked it up to, getting close to 40.
Yeah.
I'll wake up, it's stiff, stretch it out, loosens up, I'll go for a run. Usually the run loosens it up pretty well. And so just kind of been happening for, 2 or 3 weeks, and wasn't something that was affecting my training, but it was just, how it was.
It was there.
It was there. It was pre-existing.
Yeah.
And then just all the travel, all the plane sitting really just compounded it. It just fully started to lock up the lower back. Just the muscles felt like they were just kind of seized.
And you were feeling this before and on the plane, on the plane right over too?
Well, as soon as we got there, I realized it. And then sleeping in another bed. So the Airbnb we were at had a super firm, nice like Tempur-Pedic mattress, which normally would be great because that's what I sleep on at home. But with how bad my back was, it was like sleeping on a board, it's like it just wouldn't release. And I brought a foam roller that I was rolling it out, and it was okay. And I honestly didn't even really worry about it, even though it was super stiff, because I was just, we were going for shakeout runs and stuff, and it was okay because we'd do runs in the afternoon to be loosened up by then.
Once you got going,
yeah. So the race started at 6 a.m. in the dark. Actually pretty cold. I would say it was close to freezing. Like it was a lot cooler than I was used to.
And what altitude are you starting at?
3,600 feet. So pretty similar to here, right? Not super high up. But yeah, just wasn't used to the cold yet after our super hot and miserably smoky summer.
Right.
It's like we had that August of just like never ending smoke and heat. And so I think it just kind of added to the stiffness where I'm trying to warm up.
Kept you tight.
Yeah, I'm trying to warm up and I can't. It's just super tight. And then the race started with like a mile and a half of like kind of downhill, but mostly flat. It just kind of was like the pressure of a little bit of downhill running fast because I just been doing shakeout runs. Just kind of felt it locking, and then it went right into a super steep climb. And I just felt like on the verge of like pinching the sciatic nerve. I don't know if you've ever had that where your legs just kind of go numb.
I'm actually, you're talking about 40. I'm 47 now, and this year I'm dealing with sciatica, and it has completely sidelined my. I'm getting in some runs, but I get 5 or 6 miles, and that's about as much. So you start talking about that pain. I think I know
it's debilitating.
Absolutely.
And so it didn't happen in the race, but it got, and having had those problems when I was younger, even worse, and now having a pretty strong core routine
starts to mess with your head a little bit.
But yeah, it made me think, if I push the wrong way, if I twist the wrong way, if I lean too far forward was really when I was feeling it tighten up more. So it definitely made a huge impact on just my mobility.
And this is early, right? When you're getting going.
2.5 miles in.
So not to sideline that part, but so when you start, is it just, an all out like Prefontaine, going gangbusters right from the start, seeing who can hold on?
I thought it would be, but I was in the lead for the first 2 miles.
And
really? I was telling myself, don't be an idiot, Dan. Don't go out first. And we ran 6:30 pace the first 2 miles on a sleigh downhill. And I'm like, well, this is comfortable. I got big, squishy, super foam shoes on. There's no reason not to just go for it. And we're not running too hard.
Right.
But I'd heard all these stories about the Euro races, right? And I'm like, oh, these guys are going to go off. No. It was me and some Spanish guy.
They were watching you.
It's they're like, oh,
crazy Americans.
Go ahead, silly American. Yeah. And then, even at the big climb, I think worrying about my back and just kind of backing off a lot that first big climb up, I was still in 12th by the first, I think 10 miles in, 15 miles in. So I felt like I was feeling terrible, but people weren't catching me on the climb at least. So that kind of gave me a little bit more confidence to think, if you just stay here all day, you probably won't finish where you wanted, but you're probably going to finish.
Still be solid.
So that's kind of what the back was. That's why it's it wasn't one of those where it destroyed the race.
Yeah.
But it probably cost me hour and a half, which was
enough to make a difference.
Just enough to bump me down from my big dream was top 10, maybe podium. And I think if I hadn't had the back, that probably would have been where I would finish.
So you get going and you start getting up on this climb, and are you off trail right away? Because you mentioned it's different. It's a lot of scrambling. Yeah. And did you immediately see the difference once you started the race, or did you know kind of going into it that this isn't going to be a traditional trail run?
Yeah, we'd run the first few miles of the quote unquote trail portion. I'm doing air quotes here. So we knew it was pretty insane. So I knew what to expect going in. Actually, they had a live stream for wherever they could fit it. So they had the start on a live stream, and there was a guy biking on an e-bike who just took out 4 runners because his wheels got full of his spokes got full of branches, and he went flying in the air. It was crazy. I mean, it was literally crazy. We're just looking around. You had to laugh because you're like,
it's totally surreal.
We're running over it wasn't Ponderosa, but a similar type of maybe a white pine. So it just drops branches all the time, right? So you're running over those, and they're flipping up and spiking you in the stomach and getting stabbed, and just crazy. And that was the first 10 or so miles was pretty crazy like that. And you basically went the most direct route up to this big ridge from the little medieval town we started in. And the whole race was a horseshoe, so we were going up to the next mountain town, up next valley up. So first you have to climb the ridge to get on the the horseshoe part. And so they just went, we'll go through the woods and just go up behind these farms and just straight up through the forest.
Now, is it marked like a traditional race, or do they just kind of give you a wide swath and say, find your way?
No, I mean, no swath at all, no anything. So the marking was actually impressive. It was It was very impressive. I think they told us they started marking a month before the course or before the race. And I'm thinking that wouldn't work here. People would be out there taking those things down.
Yeah.
Not a problem apparently there. And they had orange ribbons with the race name on them, and also like a QR you could scan to see where you're at or something. It was like very impressive marking, which they needed because you were just in the woods. I mean, you were not anywhere near a trail. So it was like, 10 miles of that. And then we just popped out on like a gravel road on the top of the ridge. And it was the opposite. It was like, then we ran like 4 or 5 miles on a road, like a gravel road, but like.
So you get a good mix of a little bit of everything. So do they do aid stations, like traditional aid stations? What are you using for nutrition, hydration?
Yeah, we had only 5, I want to say, aid stations, which I guess is a pretty normal amount for 40-something miles. But considering how long those 40 miles are taking, it felt like
how hard you're having to push.
Yeah. So we brought a lot of stuff. I wore a fuel belt and a vest. Okay. I don't like running with bottles in my vest. I feel like they just move around and it just bugs me. So I just wore a naked belt with 2 bottles in it.
Yeah, I saw that you're a fan of the naked belt too. I've got one. And actually, I saw you running with it and I'd already kind of been looking at them and that put me over the edge and I bought one and absolutely love that thing.
You can't even understand how great it is until you finally just try it. And you're like, what is everybody talking about? It's just a belt. No, it's like, you don't even know it's there. It's just
so nice.
That's where I held my water. And I went with like 6 different brands of nutrition because I just like a bunch of different stuff. So I had some salt tabs by the Salt Stick brand, and then I had I think it's Tailwind that makes the Courtney DeWalter salted watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
I love that because it's super, super sodium. So I did that, and then I did some gnarly cola, which is caffeinated. And then I had PF gels and chews. So I had a whole menagerie of fueling stuff in my vest. I probably brought a couple thousand calories with me. And I think I probably brought over 3,000 calories. And I think I ended up taking in close to 2. So that was probably one of the biggest wins for me. It was the best fueling I've ever done in a race. Like I had a little bit of stomach problems, but nothing where I stopped being able to put food in. So I did have a quick puke and rally after one of the aid stations, but everything went back down.
Territory, maybe you're pushing that hard.
Somebody at an aid station, local guy, just literally shoved this, I don't know, some kind of dehydrated fruit thing, like put it up against my lips. Like he really thought I needed it, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I tried to eat it. It tasted gross. So I grabbed like 3 watermelon slices to wash it down, and of course, watermelon mid-run you're burping, and then of course whatever follows that, So
it all came back up.
But yeah, going back to the course, it was a big mix of just crazy off trail. You run a little bit of gravel road, then you're on a trail. And then I think by mile 10, we hit our first boulder field, which we're talking anywhere from, a couch to a car-sized boulder. And you're just trying to run over these things. And
they don't restrict you on speed or anything, tell you, you have to take it slow. It's just as fast as you can get across.
They dropped ropes because the boulder field was so far and there was no other way to really mark it. So there was just like a neon yellow rope that was like, a couple hundred feet across each section of boulders and
crazy
generally guiding you. But I got to those with a couple other people and we were all picking our own routes and just, whatever based on our proficiency for boulder hopping. So there was a whole mix. And then later on we got to actual ropes. You were pulling yourself up over cliffs, like 60% or higher, grade. So
what were the views like up top?
Pretty incredible. The first first 20 miles, they were pretty minimal. I think we were kind of still in the tree cover and going through those off-trail sections. And then at about 20 miles, we hopped on a course that is actually run every year. That was the 37K race I mentioned earlier. That course they do run every year. It was the 10th year anniversary. Oh, wow, and it has wooden signs at each kilometer. I mean, it's a permanent
It's established.
fixture. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So once we hopped on that course, then it got a lot better. It was like, there was still really off-trail type of stuff, but there was clear signage, and it was only off-trail because it was like high alpine where you're jumping from rocks to rocks over those little marshes.
Nice.
And so it was, difficult, but like beautiful. So there's a couple high alpine lakes and so.
I'd like to experience that one of these times because you hear so much about how over in Europe, it's just the approach to ultra running and big mountain running is just, it's so different. It's a way of life. And I can only imagine. What was your favorite part of the entire race?
I think what you just mentioned, just like experiencing that in person.
Yeah.
So starting with we had an opening ceremony on Thursday, so the day before any of our races, and the town that had the start and finish for a couple of the events, had the finish for most of the events, but they did an opening ceremony in this town, and I want to say the town has 1,700 residents.
Okay.
And 1,700 people
they all
were out
come
there.
Out?
Yeah. And
awesome.
Plus maybe another 1,000, plus all the teams. There had to have been a few thousand people total. Just
crazy support.
So we had a parade where we went from like the town athletic center, right? It's like this, gym. It looks like some old school gym. It's just hilarious. And they lined us to all the different countries. We had 41 countries represented. So we all lined up, held our flags, held a sign with our country's name. and just the teams paraded up through the streets all in our team gear, and everybody's out there cheering. And
Just totally surreal.
totally surreal. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we were passing around the flag, but then it ended up just being me, and I was joking. I was like, well, I'm the oldest on the team, so I guess I'm the flag
Be
bearer.
the elder statesman.
Yeah.
Oh, funny.
Representing my country. But yeah, that was probably starting with that, and just the whole experience of how we were embraced, and just how running is celebrated over there. Not because of people, and not that we were being celebrated, but just like the way that you said, the way they embrace it over there.
The camaraderie and
Camaraderie, and just the fact that it's like a real sport, Yeah. It's like, not to, complain about how it is here or anything. It's amazing here
just
too,
different.
but it's totally different.
Yeah.
It's like you get over there and you're like, people know what this is. Like they probably knew the names of the folks on the Spanish team, like it was like, oh, this is a real defined thing. People know what they're asking us. You're not getting completely random questions like you do here, where you have that coworker that's like, oh, whatever, not knowing what's happening over there. It's very informed, and so
they know what's going on. They pay attention.
Yeah, they know what's going on. They know how far things are, and then that continued during the race. The aid stations, like the folks running the aid stations, like super, super smart, except for that guy that's stuff in my face. But
the unknown substance.
Yeah, and all the teams. I think that was the other thing, not just the locals and how they embraced it, but just seeing all the other teams, and you're just hearing Portuguese on the course, because there's a huge Brazilian team, and then there's a Portuguese team, of course, too. But we had teams from like Croatia and Slovenia and Slovakia, and just countries that we don't get to experience and interact with much here in the States. And just like seeing how many places really embrace trail running. I mean, we had Australia, New Zealand, just the whole world was represented. So
it's like your own little mini Olympics right there.
Yeah. So
it's super cool.
Yeah, that was that whole experience, and just being at the, global gathering of athletes. So it's pretty incredible.
And so how did the race end up for you?
So, I mean, like I mentioned before, the back issue just really slowed me down from what I think my body could have done on a perfect day. But I ended up finishing 21st, so it wasn't terrible, right? I feel like you finish 21st at a World Championships, you're not allowed to complain. You got to come home and appreciate. Right. And I was the first American guy too, so
wow, congratulations!
Thanks. Yeah, so it's like, okay, this is good. Could have gone worse, but there's those things where you go, could have gone better. So I come home with, I would say majority of my thoughts are happy thoughts about it, because I think I did the best I could, and the things that happened were things I couldn't control, and the things I could control, like my fueling, best I've ever fueled in an ultra.
Nice.
The attitude I had after feeling my back and knowing it wasn't going to be my day, best attitude. Like,
it didn't just take you out.
No, it didn't take me out. I mean, I did end up crying, I think 3 times, because I had no control of my emotions, because I was just trying to move forward. So it was like I went to the bottom of the well.
In the well,
I was down at the bottom of the well. It was starting to go dry.
Wow.
So it was cool to get to that too, because I'm like, that's another win. I'm not usually someone who's good at really getting everything out of myself. I'm definitely one of those persons who's like, oh, I can go grind a little bit every day, but
you put it all out.
Yeah, put it all out there, and I'm like, well, I got to be happy, because I couldn't have controlled anything else differently.
Yeah.
But then there's that little tiny bit of bittersweet where I'm like, oh, I could have got that dream if
only.
Yeah. But not, that didn't dominate it. That was just like that. And even that was almost happy, because I had no idea going in. Like I said, I hadn't done many of these. I definitely never done a World Champs. And I knew these other countries were really good at this.
Yeah.
So I told myself, like, try and finish top 10, knowing that I had no idea if that was possible. Yeah. That was just because I want to do that. And I think that's a cool goal.
You got to set up,
and you got to set a big bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when I first started getting into running, this is like the early 2000s, 2010s. And I just always would watch when we'd send teams to the Olympics, and you'd see, and this is no shade at any of those athletes. I know they were all trying their best, but from an outside perspective, you'd think, these people look like they're really happy to be there.
Yeah.
I don't want them happy to be there. I want them happy to medal. And it's just like, so I had that perspective for myself, where it was like, I don't know if it's realistic, but if I'm on a World Championships team, I want the U.S. coming home with gold.
Yeah.
Like, I want that mindset, and I also want the flexibility to know if it's not happening to me during the race, I can still get the best out of myself.
Sure, you can still find some enjoyment in it.
But it's like that balance of like, I really want to enjoy this.
Well, you're there because you're competitive.
But but you got to stay competitive. You got to stay sharp. And I felt like our whole team was kind of like that. We were all like, we want to come here. We want to win. We're going to have fun. We know that's going to happen. We don't have to worry about that. We want to come here. So yeah, I think that was the overall.
So now you can look back and mission accomplished. You had a good time, a good effort. You got to the end, solid
to the
finish.
End and had, added points. I think I added chipped in like 32 points or whatever for the team. So The ultra was just a hard day in general for our team. We had a guy who had run a couple 100-milers this summer, but was coming back fit, but knew I'm going to need my poles because this is super steep. And he had a carbon pole just shatter on him, just totally break. Wow. It was just one of those brand new gear. And it just happens once in a while. And once that happened, just mentally, he felt so defeated because he was like, I knew I needed these to get up the hills. Now I don't have them. And he tried to rebound and he made it to halfway and his legs didn't have it. And then we had a gal on our team who probably would have won the women's race in the ultra. Just phenomenally talented, runs all these FKTs in the 14ers in Colorado. Just probably the best person on our team all around. Wow. And she got stung by a bee. Being in her 20s, I'm not sure exact age, but still had never been stung by a bee in her life.
Oh no, was she allergic to it?
Throat starts to close.
Oh no.
They pull her, they give her a shot, but of course they're not going to let her go. I mean, they can't, right? It's a safety issue. So even though she's fine and she's recovering at the aid station, they're
they can't take that precaution.
And she was in second or third overall at that time. So had she finished, we would have had, she felt great. She was probably going to beat the first place lady.
Wow. You just never know. Like you said, it goes back to, it's the mental side of things. Things will go wrong and it's how you deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what happened. And then in the VK and the 37K, our teams just went crazy. They dominated, finished third in both of those. So we ended up finishing fourth overall as a team. So
that's awesome.
It was awesome. We were right just off the podium. In 2018 was the last time we sent a full team and we finished third. So we were pretty close to that team. So it was, I think it was a confidence booster for most of us.
Absolutely.
Hey, none of us really had a lot of experience except for Joseph. And we all felt like we learned a lot, but we didn't underperform.
Right. Came away with a solid outcome and solid experience.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's awesome. So I want to kind of tie this one up because I want to go into another topic, the Run Club. And so I want to get into that in just a sec. But I do want to ask, so 2025 is on the radar now. What do you have in the meantime till then as far as running goals? You come back, you've had this experience. What's it look like? Are you going to slow down a little bit? What's rest and recovery? Or do you have another target, short of 25?
It's full rest and recovery right now. Yeah. I'm doing, work, a little shorter workout speed work stuff because I think strength and speed are just always a good idea for everybody at all times. So I did take a full 10 days off just to fully recover from the race. And I think even now I'm still recovering a little bit, to be honest, just from the race and the travel. Yeah. And I hadn't taken a full recovery since over a year ago. So it's been just
ask you when the last time you did that.
Because I wasn't expecting this and it just kind of popped up and I went, let's just go into training. I feel healthy. I ran 4 ultras this spring and just went right into this. So I needed that break and I think now I need it mentally. I'm physically getting close. So for the rest of this year, up until January, I'm going to just run lower miles, keep running every day because I love running.
Yeah.
And then my wife and I are both trying to train for whatever ends up being the qualify races for World Team next year. So we're both kind of doing the same training right now, which is just focus on speed and focus on strength. And then we'll start adding some longer trail adventures back next year.
Nice. And your back's feeling better?
It's getting a lot better. Yep. Yeah. I went to see my medicine woman, miracle worker, Trish, who does dry needling.
Nice.
And had her just fully go from
give you the treatment.
The neck down, basically. I was just this past week, finally got a chance to go and see her. And it's definitely on the improvement since then. So
I know as we get older, we got to focus on that rest and recovery. It's, it's important for sure.
Rest, recovery, and strength work, It's if you want longevity, you got to do those little things are actually the big things now, it turns out.
Absolutely.
It's running is second compared to all that.
Yeah. So are you going to stay focused around the 50K distance or any thoughts of going longer or cutting back to shorter stuff?
So I ended up running 3 50-mile-ish races this year. Mm-hmm. And none of them went really bad. I think they all went pretty good. And I think my one concern with going further than 50K has really just been fueling in the past. Yeah. And now I feel like, I wouldn't say I have it dialed, but I know what I need to work on and I know what I have, going for me. So I think that'd probably be the goal next year. I think that's probably where I have the best chance of getting on the team is for the 80K team, which is about 50 miles. Mm-hmm. But it'll all depend on how the races line up.
See where you're at that time.
Yeah, we don't know which races will be the qualifying races yet. And that one is you go and you qualify. If you make the team in the top 2 places or top 3 places, you're on the team. That's it. It's not a resume situation. So it'll just
qualifying standard.
Depend on what the qualifying races are. If the 40K race is first, I'll probably try and run that. Just try and make the 40K team and then
see where you're at.
If that does, good. If that doesn't, then I run the 80K.
There you go.
Give myself the best odds. Yeah.
Nice. So let's shift gears a little bit. So you're very involved in the local community with not just being a running advocate for getting out and getting outside, but you're also a co-RD of the Boise Front races. I think there's a few of you that are involved with that. And I think you might have even picked up was there another race that you're involved with too, or was it just that one now?
So our group has a whole host of races now. I think they have 5 or 6 races that they manage, and my wife and I just help on the Boise Front. But we usually volunteer at the other races and help out, but we're not race directors. So
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're very involved on that side of things. And now recently, was it just you and your wife, Sumner, that started Tree City Track Club?
There's actually a board of 12 of us. So it's a pretty big group from all different backgrounds, but most of us who've been here for a little while in the Treasure Valley with different backgrounds and running groups here as well, who came together and formed a 501c3 nonprofit.
Oh, it's fully formed?
Yep. So
wow.
Taking no credit for that part of it. John Foster's, this is his brainchild. He's a Boise native too, so he's got that, that unicorn local going for him, right? So he knows the area very well.
What's your URL?
TreeCityTrackClub.org.
I'm shocked that you got that. I'm blown away.
Yeah, on all the socials, all the things, and then we went to do the website. And my wife, she has been the one who's been building the website and doing that for us. But yeah, we got pretty lucky. If you go search for anything else related to that, we've already locked those down too. So just Tree City 5, Tree City 10, and future race ideas that we have plans for. So
that's awesome.
I would say
GoDaddy's got your credit card number.
Oh yeah. And I would say that's been the coolest thing with this group so far is that we started from such a place of organization. Mm-hmm. We started meeting back in June, having discussions kind of before then, but we had our first board meeting back in late June. And then we only officially launched 3 weeks ago now. So we really took a long time to meet at least once a week with the full board, getting everything together, getting our paperwork to be a nonprofit, getting the bank set up, the websites, all of that done before we launched. And I just think that's kind of showed with the response we've gotten from folks. People,
it's very well set up.
Go ahead.
Oh, because when I first saw that you launched, I went through the website too, and it's not just a landing page and a couple of pictures. I mean, you guys have a legitimate organization with a lot of things happening behind it.
Yeah, and I think that's just been the goal from the beginning. Is there's a lot of things in the area for running. There's a lot of running clubs. There's a lot of meetups, and we were like, we want to start this thing, but we don't want to just be out there competing with other people for the same thing because we don't see there's a need for it. And we want to build the community. We don't want to distract from stuff that we already like in the community.
Yeah.
But we looked around and we were like, John mostly, who came up with the original idea, was like, there's a need and a hunger out there for a structured training group. We were comparing to the ideas, or not comparing, but thinking of the places like a Sacramento who has the SRA that runs big club. You have Rose City over in Portland. Of course, you have Bowerman and stuff like that too. Right. But then you have the BAA over in Boston. And there's these big community clubs. Atlanta Track Club was a huge inspiration for us down in Atlanta. Very professional group, elite level coaching. But anyone can join, and everyone who joins is going to get better. That's kind of the ethos, right? So that's where we came from to start this, and that's why we wanted to make sure we had our ducks in a row, right? We didn't want to just be here with an Instagram page, which no hate to people that do that. I said, there's a need for that too.
You're coming from a different place.
But our place we were coming from is we have a 10, 20, 30-year vision for this. We have the people on this board, we have visions for we're going to need full-time people on this board at some point. The goal is, as Boise grows, for this to be the elite premier club that's going to help people become better runners. So the reasoning and the thinking and the ethos that all came from that is what led us to what the club founding kind of...
what would be kind of your mission statement of the club?
Yeah, so I was going to see kind of what got us to this mission statement of people who work hard to become better runners usually become better people. If we can bring all those people together, we can make a better community.
That's awesome.
And that was just what I think. I was just having conversations oh, that's cool. You guys are doing that. And then when I kind of heard from John and other folks, this is the background, I was like, oh, I want to be on the board. How can I help? What do you need? Right. So it's that really struck a chord with me. And I think with everybody who's been interested so far is most of us know that running has really improved our lives.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
And if somebody told me I could bottle that up, it's
and share it.
How do I do that? And all of a sudden we went, wait, we found a way to bottle that up,
That's awesome.
And that's just kind of where the mission statement came from was, and a lot of us have been training together. That was kind of where the background of that. I keep saying we and us and all. So we had a group of folks who've been training. A lot of us using the structure of the Boise Billies. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but kind of old school group that's been around forever.
I was going to ask you how that aligns with Boise Billies. Is it, are you in kind of competition with them now?
Yeah. So essentially, there was no like formal structure of the Billies. It was basically like a text group, right? Which made it a little exclusive because if you didn't know somebody, you couldn't join. And it wasn't. We would publish our workouts once in a while, but there really was no formal structure. So a few of us who had been kind of guiding it, I take part of the responsibility for that and just managing the Stravas and the Instagram for it. We all kind of were like, okay, we heard about this. This is a natural transition. Like we could have taken some of the structure from that, but that had a reputation, it had a brand, it had a thing that none of us really controlled. It just kind of had
And it changed, I think, from when it first kind of with the Billies and the Bettys as well. When it first kind of came out, it seemed like there was a little bit more of a driving force behind it.
There was.
And then it seemed like it was still there, but it wasn't so, front of mind and out there, and kind of like you said, not secret society, but you had to know the right person to know the right person, and have the secret knock, but it seemed like everybody was very welcoming and open. But it sounds like with what you're doing, there's much more of a broad scope focus on all the different aspects of how you're going to create this impactful organization.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where we were like, okay, we like a lot about that group. We like how we've all been going and getting faster by working out with people. That part's great. We need a new structure because that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is so that we get better and make our community better.
Yeah,
so it's a different focus, right? So we were just kind of like, let's form a new group. And a lot of us happen to be in the Billies, quote unquote, group. So I wouldn't say the Billies is dead, but there's no one steering the car
new
anymore.
Iteration, maybe. It's a new focus. So you're taking any ability of runner with this thing. So you're saying, it's not just something where it's an elite focus of going out there and you have to run fast. You want all levels.
Yep, exactly. No qualifying standards. Like some of these bigger clubs, they do have that, right? Here's the elite team. Here's the regular team. So we didn't want that. We do have kind of a stipulation, which is this isn't the group if you don't really want to get better.
Sure.
We're not trying to exclude anyone, but if you just want to run for fun and for fitness, that's great. But this isn't probably the group for that.
You're taking that fun, but you're adding in the competitive side of constant improvement and pushing yourself, personal development and all that.
Right. Okay. So what we try to talk to people and kind of put it into, examples, we'll say, do you want to qualify to get into the Boston Marathon? Okay. That's not a goal that, everybody has, but that's a goal a lot of people have. And you want to get faster to get that goal, right? There's standards. This year, I think it just came down. It was like, it took almost 7 minutes under the published standard to get in. That's fast. A lot of people need help for that, right? So here's a group. We're going to do long runs. We're going to do workouts. We're going to get you to that, right? So you don't have to be any specific speed, but you have to have that goal. You have to have that mindset of like working together, getting on the track, doing workouts, because that's a core part of what we're doing. Yeah. So that's about the only exclusion we have. Other than that, it's like we are still all having fun.
Yeah.
But we're having fun in the process of getting better.
So somebody, hears this and they think, okay, Tree City Track Club, this sounds like, something I might be interested in. I like to run. I'd like to get better. I like the idea of aligning with, like-minded people that are supportive, encouraging. Where do I go? How do I figure out, how to start that process?
Just treecitytrackclub.org. That's the easiest way. You can obviously reach out to any of us who are involved. We all been kind of putting in our different online presences, but I think the website's the easiest place. We do have some organizational things that we need folks to do if they're going to join, which is sign the waiver, sign up on the registration form. There is a $50 a year membership. That does include the the weekly workouts as well as some swag, water bottle shirts, and some cool
few cups of Starbucks.
Yeah.
But that covering you for the whole year. And you say with that $50 annual fee, which really that's nothing. You're saying you get some swag with that too?
You get some shirts, you get a water bottle, nice high-end stuff. So I'm wearing the shirt you can see now.
I like that, yeah.
All clean black with just simple white logos is kind of that's the whole design for the brand. Just that's my style. It's like simplicity is setting us apart,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the other part that's cool is it's like you're not just contributing and getting that stuff. We're getting that stuff at a good rate because we're ordering in bulk. And then the funds that we're getting from members, that's really going to these community events. And that's where I think the really cool part of this happens, which is supporting events like Girls on the Run and programs like that.
Okay.
We have one of our board members who works at the local prison. And one of our big plans long-term, or maybe even short-term, hopefully, is to get a a running program at the men's prison as well as the women's.
That would be awesome.
And just kind of have like a couch to 5K type of, vision for that. And then also a transitional program for folks in halfway houses and just really bringing the full benefit of running to the full community.
Yeah.
So we like to say, like, not only are people signing up and getting something out of it immediately with some cool swag, they're also donating to a legitimate charity who's going to be doing these running-based community, programs. So
that's awesome. So you're a part of the solution.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's the vision for sure. We've also kind of put right on the website too, like, folks, we do gently request, I would say, but request that our members volunteer at least twice a year at other local races.
Good.
Because we don't want to just be exclusionary. We want to support the whole community, whether you're part of our club or not.
You're promoting involvement.
Yeah, just promoting people getting out in the sport and making a difference and making an impact. So
I sign up for this, and then I say I pay this the annual fee, get my swag. How does it work from there? Do you have weekly runs? Do you have meetups? How does it work?
Yeah, so we have 2 weekly runs right now. Next week it'll be 3 starting, and 2 of those will be a Wednesday morning and a Tuesday night track workout. So that's really the kind of the core group thing that kind of a lot of us enjoyed before we founded this, and where a lot of the inspiration comes from is just knowing that working out together, we've all gotten better, and we really want folks to appreciate that and enjoy it. So like we keep going back to that of just like, come out on Wednesday morning, and if you haven't signed up or paid yet, everybody's welcome. Like we're not telling people not to come. We would actually probably prefer if people came for a couple of weeks and saw what it was all about and really knew and appreciated the vision we had, right? And got excited about it themselves, So yeah, that's kind of how that works. And then Tuesday nights, Wednesday mornings at 5:30, and this is at Boise High, right next to the Capitol, downtown Boise. And then Tuesday nights also at Boise High will be a workout then. And then we also meet at 7:30 a.m. at Payette Brewing in downtown Boise as well. So that's the Sunday, pretty easy paced long run. So
are you mixing it up then? So it's trail runners, road runners, track runners?
Yeah. So if you go on our website, we already have a trail page, but what we've kind of been joking around as shorthand is Tree City Track Trail Tarmac Club. And that's kind of the way we've been doing it. A couple of us on the board, myself, Megan Lacey, are probably identifying as full-time trail runners, right? So we still do track workouts. That's the one thing that brought us all together. It was like speed is speed, fitness
seeing the
is
benefit
fitness.
Of mixing them all up.
You still want to work on that system, and that's the one system that you really need help to get better at, right? It's like you might not need it, but you really want it. I need it for sure. And trail runs, just going out on a trail is just that's the fun in itself. Like I don't really need someone to pull me through on an easy trail run. I'm just appreciating where I'm at. But when I'm out doing reps on the track, like, come on, give me someone to pull me along.
Exactly.
So that's why track is in the name. It's Tree City Track Club, because that's the one unique part we felt like was that we all do track workouts still. Yeah. But we certainly have a majority of our runners. We probably have 1 or 2 people that actually race on the track. The rest of us are racing on trails and tarmac roads.
Nice.
So,
do you have any visions of taking the club and going and competing in regional races and things like that?
So we have big group of the club is training for the club cross-country championships, which are over in Tacoma, Washington area. Okay. First weekend in December.
Nice.
So we're going to have Masters 40-plus team, and we might have a Masters 50-plus team, and then we'll have a couple open teams, and hopefully some women's teams as well. So cool. We'll be sending over a bunch of folks. That'll probably be our first outside of Treasure Valley area. And then I think I was looking through the results of the Fit One races this past week, and I think 5 of the top 10 men in the half were Tree City runners. So
really,
like we're already kind of
making a noise already.
Yeah,
that's
so that
awesome.
was kind of from a local side. We were like, there's probably a good chance we'll start dominating these local races. That's not the goal, but that's just kind of the folks we have coming
exposure,
in.
And the more exposure you get, hopefully the more interest it creates, and the more people that we bring into it. I think all of us runners will collectively say the same thing. We love to share the joy of running because there's just something empowering about it that it puts you in a better headspace. It's obviously it's good for your health as long as your back doesn't hurt. Yeah. But I think it's an awesome thing that you're doing here, and I can't wait to see how it grows going forward. And one other thing I was going to ask, so say somebody's part of the track club and they want a little bit more personal focus. Is there going to be a component where maybe you'll offer coaching, one-on-one coaching? Are you doing that, or is that maybe a vision for the future?
We aren't doing it yet. That will start soon, where we're going to have a one-on-one coaching option that you can kind of book through the club.
Awesome.
One of our board members, a super experienced coach, and he's been kind of helping guide us towards how we set that up. But that is definitely the pretty short term, almost immediate vision is to kind of have that offered as well. Because I think we will draw some folks in.
Yeah.
And then we'll have folks like myself that hopefully can help educate people in kind of self-coaching if that's the method they want to go. And yeah, I think that's really what's cool about bringing in an experienced group of folks, like former pro road tour cyclists, former Olympians. Like we have all different backgrounds in this group with a lot of experience, and it's just kind of learning from them as peers can help guide you to that next step as well.
Absolutely.
If you need a coach, if you want to coach yourself, if you're not really sure what, you're just kind of trying to do workouts once a week and get in shape, you're going to have somebody that can kind of guide you. So, and that'll all come at no cost, right? That's just people you're running with.
That's awesome.
No, that'll be
so
the first
cool.
step. And then, more formal stuff can come out of that, and depending on what people want or need.
That's cool. So many good things happening with you, man.
I know.
It's awesome. It just keeps rolling.
Yeah, I think I have one night this week when I'm not out and about doing something, and it's, I'm trying to balance not getting, pulling myself too far and stretching myself too thin, that's a fun balance though.
Yeah.
When you have too many good things going on, it's like, it's juggling, but it's,
It could be worse.
It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you taking the time to kind of catch us up on what's going on, in your world, and I'm sure we're going to have a conversation 3 before long, because as we're eyeing 25, I really want to see where that goes, and I want to keep following the Tree City Track Club. I want to see what happens there, because like you, I'm a huge advocate for running in the community and touching all walks of life, young, older, every ability and all that, and I'm really, really excited for what you're doing there. So again, I really hope if people hear this, check out treecitytrackclub.org.
.org. Yeah,
Okay.
treecitytrackclub.org.
Yeah, and join you there. And just to kind of wrap this thing up, I'd also like to give you a chance to let people know where to find you, because I know you're also doing a little bit more social content. You've got your YouTube channel. I'm not sure if Facebook or Instagram. Where can people find a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I've actually just kind of rebranded all of my different online presences.
Yeah.
I've kind of become a little more formal and more of a business type of approach to it. I realized a lot of the stuff I have has been geared around my self-coaching journey. So if anybody wants to find me, they can now find my handle, Self-Coached Runner. And I'm going to start kind of offering more formal coaching consultation advice. So
nice.
That's been one of the other things that's happened in the
Nail
last few
your
months.
niche. They always say nail your niche.
And it's funny because I think if you're keeping an open mind, it happens a little organically.
Yeah.
Never an intention, right? And I think that was the one thing I wanted to make sure I brought up, maybe as a a closing thing, is just don't say no to opportunities because they weren't what you planned. I think the last year has taught me everything we just talked about this whole time. Not a single one of those things did I envision or plan, right?
But you kept an open mind.
Having a vision and a plan is great, and I do that for everything. But I kept an open mind, and most of the things were stuff that I just, even my first the Skyrunning World Trail Team, I had to have a friend kind of remind me. Sean Olsen had to, Sean. He had to be the one that was like, dude, you should apply. We were on an easy run, and he's like, whatever. If they say no, they say no. You already have your resume built. Just send it over, And it was one of those like, okay, don't say no.
Sometimes it's good to have that encouragement. It goes back to the the Tree City Track Club. You have encouragement there. It'll push you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, because that's where you experience the most growth, is on the outer edges of your abilities. And you never know what you're capable of or what opportunities you'll be able to experience. Yeah. Like you can going to Italy and doing a sky run.
Yeah. So, and you can always say no later, right? You can start something and realize it's not the right approach, and most things are pretty low barrier to taking the early exit. So
worst case, you get a really cool experience out of it.
Yeah. But definitely don't be afraid to get out on the margins there, and just incredible experiences can happen. So you got to stay open. And I think the other thing too that I just always try to pass along is just focus on other people. Like it makes everything better in your own life.
Be in the service of others.
Be in the service of others.
Absolutely.
That's what it's like. And if your mindset is that, you're probably going to see examples and see opportunities happen, because there are opportunities for you to help others. And I think that's what all of us on Tree City, like, we're getting stuff out of it, sure, but the main thing we're getting out of it is the joy of helping other people.
Absolutely.
And it's like, wow, that's the coolest thing you could do, right? So.
Yeah, no, I totally align with you there. Absolutely. Well, Dan, another good conversation. I appreciate it. And with that, I guess we'll keep an eye on you and see what happens here in the near future.
Sounds great. Thanks for bringing me on, Jayk.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
All right.
And that wraps up another episode of the Run from the Norm podcast. My chat with Dan is a powerful reminder of how life's unexpected twists and turns can sometimes lead to unexpected and pretty incredible opportunities if you maintain an open mind, a positive attitude, and a healthy appetite for adventure. As always, a huge thank you to you for sharing your time and listening to this episode. And if you're enjoying what we're doing, I humbly ask for one favor. Please follow the Run From The Norm Facebook page for updates on new podcast releases, and you can also find some cool Run From The Norm swag at runfromthenorm.com, like some hats, t-shirts, running shirts, and even some heavyweight hoodies to keep you warm as the temperatures cool down. And with that, I encourage you to stay curious, keep moving forward, and get outside to run from the norm.
Check that mic, make sure it sound right, boy.